So tell us where things are starting in season 2, and what are you most excited for fans to see in the new season?
I mean, things more or less pick up right where we left off. It's in the aftermath of the massive fight with Omni-Man and Invincible, and we're kind of picking up with that status quo and watching the characters pick up the pieces and try to move on. I mean, it's a very emotional season. It starts in a very emotional place and is going to be no less intense than what we saw at the end of season 1.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Nigeria Chambers, Big O Belt Media. I've already attested that Invincible has the best voice acting crew of all time.
We agree.
Yes.
And then you said, okay, hold my beer. We get introduced to Sterling K. Brown very early in this season, by the way.
Yes.
Jay Farrell, who I didn't realize was him because he could play 1,000 different voices.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wasn't able to identify who was voicing Nightwing, but I know that voice for sure.
Darkwing, yeah.
Darkwing, yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virgo.
Yeah, no, I know.
Oh.
I don't know
yeah.
if we're allowed to say.
Oh, then I didn't say anything. Can we say when we were? Oh no, shoot. Nobody.
It's all good. It's all good.
Nonetheless,
Okay.
just knowing you already had a phenomenal cast and just double down on it this season, what was sort of ego, pepping your step coming into this?
No, I mean, honestly, there's no ego in it at all because it's all because of Stephen Yun to a certain extent. And, it's a team effort with our casting director, Linda LaMontagne, Simon and myself, Corey Walker chimes in a lot, Dan Duncan, Sean O'Neill. Like, we, sit together with the scripts. We try to figure out who would be best for those roles. And, sometimes we get exactly like the perfect actor, and then sometimes someone will suggest someone that we didn't expect, and we're like, oh my gosh, like that's perfect as well. But I really have to give credit to Steven. I mean, Steven believed in us early on. He's a buddy of mine. Maybe I called in a favor, and the fact that he's leading this show, the fact that he's playing Invincible, is just attracting no end of talent because everyone in Hollywood wants to work with that guy. So we've been really fortunate on that front.
Yeah, 100%.
Imagine making Sterling K. Brown menacing.
I know.
It's magic.
Well, I mean,
He's incredible. I mean, he brought everything to this. Like, left it all in the booth from the first day to the last day. He's incredible. I can't wait till you guys see and hear Sterling on screen for this season.
Yeah, he's been absolutely spectacular. I mean, he's an actor that can be the most sincere, kindest, warmest individual you've ever encountered, and also be insanely threatening and terrifying almost at the same time. I mean, he's almost he's got a very J.K. Simmons-like ability in that respect, and it's really cool to be able to work with him.
And then he gets in the booth, and it's like crazy. So, it's a whole different level there too.
Yeah.
Julian reporting for The Nocturnal. Great to see both of you here today.
Likewise.
For Kirkman, how do you strike a balance when it comes to adapting the source material for this season compared to the first one?
I think the first season was slightly more difficult just because we were trying to maintain the bookend element to the Nolan Omni-Man Invincible story. So we knew what we wanted the first episode to be, we knew what we wanted the last episode to be, and we had 6 episodes in the middle, and if we had adapted the comics directly, we wouldn't have had the space to have those 2 moments be the bookend. So we moved a lot of stuff around and adjusted storylines to accommodate that. With our second season and beyond, we have some similar problems along the way where, there are certain things we want to give more time or less time, or we want to condense storylines. In comics, you can do a subplot and then come back to the subplot like 10, 20, 30 issues later, and the fan base is really accustomed to that. In television, it's a little bit more difficult, so you want to give them a little bit more to hang their hat on. So there's sometimes where instead of having a 7-beat subplot that ran over like 50 issues, we'll turn it into like a 6-beat subplot that'll play over multiple seasons, and so we're kind of combining things. But it's been a lot of fun working with Simon and Helen Lay and Ross Strachey to figure out exactly how we're going to be adapting the stories from the comics.
Yeah, I think one of the best examples in season 1 was the Reanimate story, which in the comics runs, I think, all the way to issue 58 or something is the final beat of that. And we was pulling those beats out and realizing, oh, this is one great story. Maybe harder to sustain over 5 seasons in a comic, but we can bring that in, make it 1 episode on the show, and still find it, what was there in the books, and just sort of bring it together and package it for you in 45 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With Angstrom Levy, the season has taken the advantage of further exploring its own multiverse while building on the core connection between Invincible and Omni-Man. How important was it to adapt Angstrom from the comics in a thematically important way?
I think that Angstrom is it's like the first villain that is Invincible's villain. It's not just someone that existed in the world that, possibly Omni-Man faced or other members of the Guardians of the Globe faced. Like, in this season, Invincible is taking the mantle of, Defender of the Earth from Omni-Man because he's not there. And Angstrom emerges at a time when Mark's trying to figure things out and exists because of Mark. And so I think that having a villain that is the core of our season, that also is so tied to Invincible at this time in his life when he is so uncertain and he's trying to figure things out. That was something that was really important to us to, pull directly from the comics and, really showcase and build a season around.
My name is John from Dead Talk Live. Thank you. So regarding this upcoming season, will Omni-Man's exile be further explored? Will we know what he's up to, or will it be more of a mystery?
It's definitely going to be a mystery. I think that the thing I'm comfortable with saying is that, you're not going to watch the entirety of Season 2 without seeing Omni-Man. I think that, a lot of people came from Season 1, Omni-Man fans, not necessarily loving what that character did, but, interested in who that character is and wanting to see more of him. And, at some point we'll deliver that, but I think there is a lot of mystery as to how and why and when that character will show up. And the way he left the planet in the first season, as a fan, I would definitely want to see where he went and what happened to him. And that's something that we'll see eventually at some point in some form. But, when it happens, it'll be when you least expect it.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that makes the comics so great is that everything has weight and repercussions in it. As opposed to some other comics where a terrible thing happens and it kind of is forgotten 2 issues later. And I think in the comics, what's so great about that in Invincible is that things have repercussions. So we try to bring that into the show. So obviously, you guys know what happened in Season 1. We're going to show you the repercussions of that going forward. So you can take that from what you will, but you're gonna find out what happens after Season 1 in Season 2.
TJ Zwarich, Agents of Fandom. We're living in kind of a golden age of comic book and fantasy content on TV and movies. Whether it's Invincible, Walking Dead, The Boys Diabolical, what draws you two specifically to the adult side of that? Because you're both kind of succeeding at it right now at the highest level.
I think the Invincible show is happening at the best possible time because when the Invincible comic debuted 20 years ago, it was, Corey Walker, Ryan Otley, and myself commenting on, expanding upon, playing up the tropes of superhero storytelling. And superhero storytelling had been going on since the 30s. The Marvel Universe had been going since the 60s, and the comic book audience was very well versed in those tropes. And so it played really well with Invincible because we were, putting those books out to a very educated audience. And now, because of the prevalence of superhero stories in all media, Invincible, the show, is coming at a time where the same way the comics commented on Marvel Comics from the 90s and to the 60s and various different stories from DC Comics, the Invincible show gets to kind of shine a light on some of the functions and some of the story structures that have been popular in the MCU and various DC movies. We're not spoofing anything at any point, but I love that an audience comes into Invincible with an awareness of how superhero stories normally go. You come into any episode of Invincible and you're going to be feeling like, oh, I know how this is going to go because I've seen Iron Man 2 and I've seen Avengers and I know how they build to this and I know how they do this and I know how they do reveals. And we do the exact opposite often, and we change expectations often. So we're going to, take an audience and have them going into an area that they think they're going to expect, and then we get to pull the rug out from under them in a really cool way.
I think it's also just we try to ground our stuff a lot more. I mean, we have fantastical things, we have great moments of comedy, we have crazy things happening. But again, it's the emotional reactions and the effects of superheroes on the world. We ground it. We make it feel real. I hope, anyway, that's a goal, in a way that a lot of these other series don't. So you know what? Sometimes a good guy doesn't. Sometimes if you get hit by Superman, you die. And buildings fall down, and there's repercussions to that again. So that's what I think helps make it adult, or makes it adult to me. Anyway. It's not the swear words, it's not the actors, it's the content, the emotional content of the episodes.
So you have a wealth of source material, obviously from the original comics, but you also know where the story ends. How far in advance have you planned out the animated series at this point?
I mean, roughly, I have like a vague notion of, the beats I'd like to hit season to season all the way through the end. I think that it's important to keep things malleable. We may end up going more seasons than I expect or less seasons.
Right.
But it is a tremendous gift to have that 144 issue run and be able to say, okay, well, we can expand that storyline or not expand that storyline. We can truncate things here. And I've said often that I look at this series as like a second draft of what we were able to do on the comics, because I didn't know exactly where everything was going at every point in writing the original series. But now that we know how the story wraps up, how important some characters become, we can backwards engineer new things into the television series that will set up some of those coming events better.
Right.
And that's a fun experiment.
I mean, we have the roadmap of the show,
Right.
right, in the comics. And, that's what we're doing. We're taking that, we're expanding where we can. We're opening up the space between the panels sometimes and showing you a bit more of what's happening between each panels than you could in the comic. But that's the show.
Right.
We're very lucky in that sense.
Also, I didn't introduce myself earlier like everybody else did, so
Oh.
thanks, Spring Live for Films.
Nice to meet
Oh,
you.
cool.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Save the last question.
Okay.
Oh,
Najir again, and to bounce off of your comment, Simon. Haven't seen the first 2 episodes of season 2.
You've seen it?
I have.
Oh,
yes.
great. Okay.
So Mark.
everybody has
nice.
that? Wow.
So Mark obviously graduating high school. This is a big thing. Everybody, we've been there, but also balancing his relationship. We see that's being explored. But some of the other big things we're seeing is obviously him proving to everybody and even to himself that he's not his dad. And also from the superheroes and villains aspect, that he is truly invincible. Even his alliance is in questions very early in this. How did you balance, and talking about Steven's work, how did you balance all of these emotions with him and his character so heavy in these first 2 seasons?
I mean, I think Steven brings so much to it. He, with him, he reads the scripts. Obviously, we talk about the character role, and he has so much great input into where the character's head is at, especially at that age, because Steven's older. Mark is 20-ish, at the start of that, because he's just graduated high school. So he brings a lot to it from that point of view. He really gets into the character and has good questions about that. For us, I think again it was like looking at the comic and then sort of really just being like, where would you be in this place? Where would anyone be with these kind of responsibilities, having just gone through the events of the end of season 1? Like, how could you not have trauma from that? How would you not be wrecked from that and still trying to pull your world back together through all that, because you have these responsibilities.
I mean, one of the things that makes the series so complicated and engaging is that we're taking really high stakes and really insane superhero scenarios and applying human emotion and human logic and real world aspects to it. And so that's why you see Invincible as a character going through all these emotions and having to deal with the situation that he's in and the status quo shakeups and the pressures that he has around him because of his abilities and things. It's all just an effort to kind of bring some sense of realism to this really fantastical world.
Mm-hmm.